Brothers, thank you for coming to this very important conversation. As you well know, we're in negotiations for your new labor agreement that will go into effect July of 2011. And it's an environment that is unprecedented. We're being attacked on all fronts. We were going to show you a video, but we can't get enough juice to pull it off of our website to sort of give you an understanding of what we're up against. The attack on public employees is nationwide. It's occurring in every state, in every city, in every county, and every municipality across this country. It's a strategic approach by the right-wing conservative groups, and their intent is to weaken public sector unions across the board. Over the years, corporate America has done a good job, if you look at it from their perspective, of weakening the unions in the private sector. At one point in this country, private sector workforce was about 35–36% unionized. Over the years, due to ongoing attacks by corporate America and misguided politicians, the labor force in private sector is down to 7%. With that went an erosion in wages, an erosion in defined benefit plans, real guaranteed pension plans, and an erosion in comprehensive, adequate health care for millions of workers across this country. Now, that wasn't done by accident. It was done for one reason and one reason only, because corporations know if they can keep down the labor costs of their workers, then they can increase the profits for their shareholders. Regrettably, that same strategy is being brought to the public sector. As you may know, I think it was last year, the Supreme Court opened the floodgates and decided to allow corporate America to spend whatever they want in the political arena. And this past election cycle, there was unprecedented spending supporting conservative candidates across the country who do not favor unions, who have no sympathy for workers, and the political landscape in this country has changed dramatically. In addition to their success at the ballot box, they've decided to wage an attack against public sector unions. The rationale is pretty simple. They know that public sector unions wield a tremendous amount of political influence in this country. We still have the capacity to elect worker-friendly candidates and unelect those who are not. And their strategy is to weaken us and take away that political leverage that we have enjoyed for decades. Why? There's a simple reason for it. If they in fact can do that and get folks who are more friendly to their bottom line, in other words, more friendly to help generate additional profits for them, they will move to wholesale contract out public sector work across the country. And that effort is underway as we speak. Regrettably, in this last election, we lost, I think, somewhere around 24 governor's mansions and about 16 general assemblies or so to the right-wing party. And I can assure you that what you're going to see in these states on a go-forward basis is across-the-board contracting out of public services. Some of the key targets will be transit services. Other targets will be segments of health and human services, on and on and on. And sisters and brothers, if they're successful, what the end result will look like is a lowering of public sector wages across the board, the dismantling of our pension plans across the board and the elimination of adequate, affordable health care for you and your families across the board. So unfortunately, we find ourselves in an environment in this country where we are being attacked from all sides. That's the national picture, and the video we were going to show you underscores that. I would strongly encourage you all, when you find a moment or so, to go up on our website, find the Rachel Maddow video that's on there, and then another video that's on there, and see for yourself what's going on. As if that wasn't enough, we have other external forces working against us. I'm sure you've heard by now about the Office of Legislative Oversight's report. It was a report that was ordered by the County Council, conducted by the Office of Legislative Oversight that works for the County Council. And their charge was to look at compensation levels, to look at our pension packages, and to look at our health care benefits, and to make recommendations on how those costs can be lowered. Well, sisters and brothers, if you haven't taken the time to go through that report, if there's nothing else you do, please do that. You can go on the County Council's website, search for the Office of Legislative Office Report on Wages and Benefits, and skim through it. You're not going to read the whole thing. It's 60, 70 pages. But skim through the parts that reference wages and benefits, and you'll see what's coming at us from the County Council. In your packet, we gave you a one-sheet highlight of what recommendations are in there. One of the recommendations is they're proposing a permanent, not temporary, permanent rollback in employee salaries, anywhere from 1% up to 5%. They're also recommending significant cuts in your pension packages. And they're also recommending reduction in your health care, and they're recommending that you pay substantially more for lesser benefits. In addition, they're looking at the workforce in its totality, but if history continues to repeat itself, they're not going to look at things that need to be looked at, how we're structured, how we're managed, those sorts of things. They're going to look at our positions and potentially decide, well, maybe we don't want to be in this particular service or not. Maybe the private sector can do it better, and maybe this should be contracted out. So that's the approach they're taking in terms of looking at the workforce. So sisters and brothers, we've been through 2 tough years. I don't need to tell you that. You live that every single day, you and your families. Your ability to improve your lifestyles have been put on hold. Your ability to chase the American dream has been slowed. And I appreciate the sacrifices that you've made. I wish I could stand here and tell you that the worst is behind us, but I can't. I'm here to tell you that the worst is in front of us. We're at a point now where this government, this employer, is focused on one thing and one thing only, the bottom line. They're not concerned any longer about the quality of services, because if they were, they wouldn't have made such drastic cuts in staffing levels, leaving the rest of you to make up the difference. And I know it's getting more and more difficult to do that. If they weren't simply concerned about the bottom line, they'd have adult, rational conversations with your union and discuss alternatives to balancing the budget that aren't at your and your family's expenses. But they're resisting those conversations. They're insisting that you give back your hard-earned wages. They're insisting that they pay less into your pension plan, and they're insisting that you pay much more for your health care. We're going to show you those proposals in a moment. If that weren't enough, we have yet another attack coming at us. In about a week or so, the Montgomery County Organizing Reform Commission is going to render its report. For those of you that may not know what that is, that was a commission that was put together by the County Council last year, legally charged, to look at the entire county structure and recommend ways to reduce costs. Fortunately, we have a good friend that sat on that commission, and she's been giving me inside information. And regrettably, what she's reported to me is that the recommendations that are forthcoming are not going to favor you and your families. They're going to be more of the same. They're going to be weakening your collective bargaining rights, so we have less leverage at the bargaining table, not more. They're going to be restructuring your wages and benefits so the county doesn't have to pay out so much, but yet you have to make less work for you and your families. And there's going to be a whole bunch of other recommendations that I suspect are going to be targeting us as public employees here in Montgomery County. If that weren't enough, we have one more fight on the horizon. Last year, Governor O'Malley commissioned a task force to look at state pension plan. The state pension plan in Maryland is probably one of the worst pension plans in terms of funding on a national level. It's not because those workers don't deserve good pension benefits. It's not because the state didn't have the capacity to put money in the plan to make sure that those workers will someday get to enjoy those benefits. It's because for about 15 years, they chose not to put any money in the plan, somewhere to the tune of $15 or $20 million. And now, those state workers are probably going to be forced to either put significantly more of their hard-earned dollars in the plan to make up the difference, or settle for lower benefits. Neither one of those are a good option. Now you might ask, why do we worry about that? Well, our union represents about 500 folks that are in the state pension plan. We have a couple hundred in Montgomery County that used to work in the state system, social services, that were brought into the county government in the first year of the Duncan administration, and many of those employees chose to stay in the state pension plan. So we have an obligation to protect those workers. In addition, our Cumberland City police officers are in the state pension plan, and we have an obligation to protect them as well. And then lastly, we have about 250 or so employees in Prince George's County that work for the library system who are also in the pension plan, the state plan, and we have an obligation to protect them as well. But also, think about this a minute, sisters and brothers. If the state takes the approach to fix their pension plan at the expense of the workers, that will be a trend that will ultimately trickle down to us. And we have to fight like hell in partnership with a whole lot of other unions across the state where we are part of a coalition to stop that from happening. But the point is, that's yet another attack that we're having to deal with.